Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Home Staging Talk Show Live, a weekly show brought to you by the International Association of Home Staging Professionals. I'm Jenny Norris, your host. I'm also the chairwoman for IAHSP, and happy to be with you today. Had a little bit of a trouble getting on live. Facebook wasn't connecting, so I just had to be patient. So today we've got a great show for you. We got a design trends specialist with us today, MaryJo Camp, coming to us from North Carolina, and she's one of our speakers at our conference, which is coming up shortly. Very excited to have her joining us. And before we get to her, hi everybody, thank you for joining. Hey, South Carolina or North Carolina people, excuse me, I see you're on there. People have been asking about how you fared for the hurricane, so go ahead and write some comments to me. Because we were thinking about you. I'm sure you would have told me if your houses were in trouble or anything else bad happened. So just let us know, because we do care about that. And anybody in South Carolina and other areas that were affected, our thoughts go out to you. And any way we can help support you in the staging industry, let me know, because we want to help. So our conference is coming up October 18th, 19th, and 20th. And we are down to something like 5 spots left. So if you've been sitting on the fence, wanting to come, or sort of like, oh, should I come? Should I not come? Come. You're going to have a great time. I just spoke to the Scott brothers, our keynote speakers for our conference. Their team yesterday to kind of hash out final details. So super excited to have them joining us on Friday as our keynote speakers. And the book signing will take place after their session. So I just ordered all the books. So it's all coming together, and lots of us behind the scenes are working to make sure that everybody who attends has a fabulous time. Those of you that are going on the High Point Wholesale Experience, there's still room to sign up for that. I did send out an email to everybody. So if you're watching this and you have signed up for that and you're like, hey, I didn't get an email, you got to let me know, because it was instructions on how to register for High Point, and then some tips on making it easy for you there, like comfortable shoes and getting a wheelie bag to take with you. And but the most important thing is that you get registered, because their cutoff date for sending you your ticket at your house is the 28th. That's Friday, the 28th, because today is... What is today? Yeah, today's the 26th. I'm losing time. So anyhow, the 28th, which is Friday, so you have to go on their system. It's free to register. They're going to ask you for your credentials and so forth. So you'll have to upload those. Once you're in the system, you're great. So if you don't get to it by the 28th, you can still register. You'll just have to pick up your badges and so forth at High Point, and there'll be kiosks to make that happen. So don't forget to get that done. So really looking forward to that event, and just be a lot of learning and walking. We also need you to send me your resale license, your driver's license, and your business card, which are the 3 things that High Point asks for. And what we're going to do with those is send those ahead of time to our vendors so they can pre-register you. That way we're going to save a lot of time at market. You'll be taking time filling out paperwork, and you can just learn, see the products, shop, and make purchases if you want to. So, and Virginia's posting that Linda, who's unable to come to the conference, has an early bird ticket for the conference for sale, which, by the way, if you buy that ticket, it's a VIP spot too, so you'll be first in line to see the Scott brothers, which will be fun. Okay, so that's all coming up. It's coming up fast, so I'll be heading to Charlotte on the 13th, which is Saturday. Thank you for the Charlotte IAHSP chapter members who are receiving some of the shipments that are, there's going to be more headed your way. Just the boxes alone, I'm not doing this to you guys, but 34 boxes of books. It's going to be on a pallet, so I'm going to send that directly to the hotel. So don't be concerned, Virginia and Maria, I'm not going to send those to your houses. Anyhow, very excited. Some of the vendors actually will be selling their things right at the conference. So we know our art people, a lot of the people that are bringing furnishings, they don't want to have to put them on a truck and take them home. So you can actually purchase things at conference. So be prepared for that. And I also want to talk about our live auction. So Worldwide Staging Service Week took place and is taking place now. And some of the projects will be run after conference. Some are happening now. Some are going to be, before conference. But anyhow, our chapters all over the world have done service projects for their communities. And this is a way for us to give back. And I really think it's important, any of us, that we do give back to our communities. And this is just one way that we can organize ourselves and use our staging talent to give back to those in need. And so thank you to all you chapters that have done projects. Please make sure to send your pictures in to me or BJ, and because we want to make a montage and so forth of those. But so we were going to have a live auction at our conference. And so I'm just going to rattle off a few things that are being auctioned off so far. We have some great trips. We have a trip to Cancun, trip to Switzerland, trip to Breckenridge, Colorado, working on Cape Cod adventure with Mary Scalley's property there, lifetime memberships in IAHSP, educational offerings for courses, lifetime memberships for ASPM and ASP. Coaching sessions will be offered to you. There's one that's a full year of coaching with one of the top business coaches in the country, and he's offered that up, and that value of that alone is 10 grand. And so a lot of people are coming out and contributing, donating for our fundraiser for the IAHSP Foundation. So we'll be posting these before conference. You guys will be prepared and know what to shop for and how much money to save up so that you can afford to purchase these wonderful offerings for our live auction that all go to support the IAHSP Foundation, which is a nonprofit. And the IAHSP Foundation funds Worldwide Staging Service Week projects around the world. So really, really excited about that. And if you have something you would like to donate, it could be something on, Andrea Chinese is going to make up 2 big gift baskets. She's going to bring those. So we'll have other things on the smaller side. But if you have a timeshare you're not using, or something special that you do as far as business coaching, like June Carter's going to give 2 one-hour home staging coaching sessions with her, and she does GIST solutions. Get your stuff together. I bet that S used to stand for something else, June. But get your stuff together, and that she organizes and she puts systems in place. And so she's going to coach for 2 hours. She'll be able to, thanks, Kat, to get, some lucky winner will be able to work with her on that. So, and I've asked a lot of our speakers who are coaches who have programs like Staging Studio and Successful Stager, Joanne Lynette Wary's company. So they're going to be offering things that you can bid on, which is really fabulous. So I'm very grateful for that. And we had a great time in Plymouth last week with the Masters. Hopefully you're able to join us for that segment and the new students that were there. And that was their first time on Facebook Live for most of them. And so they were kind of nervous. I thought they did a great job. So the main thing is just do it. Just get on there. Nobody likes how they look on video. Just, so just get over that. And by the way, people watching aren't really thinking critical things about you. They're just looking at you and listening to you. So don't be afraid to do Facebook Live broadcasts because they're fun and it's a great way to share what we do with people that are following us or connected to us. And so that was really fun. All right, another announcement I have. Some of you may have seen Orlando Reyes. We have a GoFundMe for Orlando. He is a staging colleague out of Miami, and he is currently dealing with some health issues. And so as a staging community, I think it's important to help each other. And so if you could contribute to the GoFundMe that we've started, that would be hugely appreciated by him. I've never met him in person. I just messaged him on my phone. I've never talked to him in person. I know that he's worked with Sandra Holmes, and she has shared what a wonderful person he is, and he does beautiful work. And so this illness has taken him away from Florida, and he's receiving care in Illinois. So Chicagoland Stagers, he's right in your backyard. He's staying with his sister, and he's a father, and has a business. And while he's dealing with this, when he's finished with the treatment and so forth, he's going to come back to a business that basically has died off because he's not able to be there to maintain it. So anything you can contribute, $25, $50 would really help him. And if any of you watching, if you have a need, don't be embarrassed to reach out for help. He did not reach out to me, by the way. I reached out to him once I learned from Sandra what was going on. And I don't have a lot of the specific details. I just know there's somebody in need. I know how it is to have to be self-employed and have medical expenses and so forth, and then not to be able to have your business keep going. And so, I'm fortunate I have a team in place. If something happens to me, I know things can still go on, but we have to think about, we're helping him with his medical, but also thinking about what's going to happen after. So those of you that have contributed, thank you so much. I know he greatly appreciates it. So it's a GoFundMe. I think it's on, yeah, you could send him if you'd like to do that, Virginia. The GoFundMe, I don't know what percentage they take. And I wish I could take my name off of it because I don't know how that's the first time I've done one. So I was trying to make it so it's not my name attached to it at all, because it should just be about him. And I can find out Karen for you, because I know he's staying with his sister in Chicagoland area. So those of you that don't want to go through GoFundMe, if you would like to send money instead, I can definitely get an address. So I'll write that down, and we can post that for people to send things. Okay. Thank you guys. You're so generous. And then share the GoFundMe. It's on my page. We post it to a lot of different places. So if you share it to your page and just put out there that this is a staging colleague, and any one of us could have a need like that at any given time. So it's nice when the community can come together and rally behind somebody. So, all right. Well, with that, hey Trish. So I think MaryJo. I saw Mary Beth Francisco. So MaryJo is here. So I'm going to bring you on, MaryJo. So MaryJo Camp is joining us today from Charlotte. So it's adding MaryJo. And I saw MaryJo, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 years ago. She came and spoke at a conference in the Whidbey Island area, on Whidbey Island, and talked about design trends at that time. And and it says, I've already approved you. So, okay, that's good. It's not on my end. It's on yours. So all you have to do, MaryJo, we'll give it a little bit. I approved you on my side. You just had to accept on yours. There you are. We're connecting. Hi.
How are you?
Yes. Yeah, 2 weeks ago I had such a challenge. It just wasn't working.
Here we go.
So good morning. I know we have our hair and our makeup on right now.
Good morning.
We have our hair and makeup. I know yesterday we did our tech test, and I'm like, listen, and because who's going to see me except for MaryJo. So welcome. I was just sharing. Was it 2014 or 15 that you went to the conference? Was it 14?
It was in Whidbey. I think it was 14, maybe.
Yeah, so it's been about 4 years, and I was just what you shared was so beneficial, and I've used that information many times, talking to my clients, and so I'm super excited to hear what you're going to share at our conference coming up. So for those of you that don't know, for those watching that don't know who MaryJo is, tell us who you are and where you're from.
Okay, I am a certified interior designer, certified kitchen and bath designer. I'm certified in aging in place, and I'm certified as a green professional. So I'm certifiable. I've been doing kitchen and bath design for over 30 years. At 30 years, we ladies stop counting so that nobody knows how old we are, unless they look at us on TV like this.
Anyway.
Anyway, I love kitchens and baths because they're mechanical and they're somewhat permanent. If you make a kitchen work, it works for years and years and years. If a layout doesn't work in a living room, you kind of move the furniture around and can fix it. But in a kitchen, you really have to make the right decisions for the people that live there. So I love kitchens and baths, and that's what I predominantly do in my practice. I got started because I'm the youngest of 8, and we lived in a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, the 10 of us. And the kitchen was so minimal and so not usable, but my mom made it work. And I figured from that and the 5x8 bath, I could do better. So that's what I've done for 30 plus years.
Wow. 10 people, and she said it was a 1,200 square foot?
Yeah. 1,200 square foot house. the bathroom was that standard 5 by 8, and we all got ready for school. And I don't know how we did it, honestly. When I talk to clients and they say each child has to have their own bathroom, I think, oh my goodness, what a luxury. And then I go ahead and do it because that's what our business
Yeah.
is.
I know we had seven of us in a house. We so had five girls sharing one bathroom, and
Yeah.
so my mom would make two of us shower at night and then three in the morning. And so it was like you had to draw the straw. So whoever showered at night, then your hair looked terrible in the morning. But yeah, it
Yeah.
was always but we made it work. It's just that's all we had, so we didn't know any different.
Yeah, there's something that you learn about sharing when you're under those kind
Yeah,
of circumstances. That's kind of a nice thing.
that's very true. So talk to us about how did you get into doing the specializing in the trends? And so, and by the way, so I sent you the questions, like, first of all, what is a trend versus something that's more of like a couldn't find the word for like a permanent style. You talk about like art deco, we can label styles, but what is it, how does that differ from a trend?
Well, I actually started really paying attention to trends because of the fact that kitchens and baths are so somewhat permanent in the house. Once you build them, you don't typically remodel them the next year or move things around. And so looking at design trends, long-term design trends were very important to me. And there's when you say trend, it's a shift in direction. It's a dominant way things are going. If we look at, a lot of times we'll talk about trendy, and
Right,
trendy is more of a fad. It's more of a, people got really excited about something, and there was just so much enthusiasm for it, and then it faded out. So
right,
for me, it was important to take a look as a designer between what's a true trend and what is trendy or a fad. And so for the industry, I think it's important for us to look at what cultural trends are. So what's happening out in the world? Why people in their lifestyles are navigating towards doing certain things. And so, for example, the open concept unfitted kitchen, why did that become so important? Well, it became important because of the change in lifestyle, because people got busier, women started working outside the home, people started cooking together, more things were being done in the kitchen under the eye of the mom when she came home. And so that's really how that whole design trend, which is very big right now. I mean, if you listen to any designer, they talk about open concept until your
right.
eyes kind of roll back in their head. But that really is important because it supports that cultural trend. So what I'm going to be talking about at the conference is a couple of these big cultural trends, lifestyle trends, and how design, particularly in kitchens and baths, because that's what I know, have developed to support those cultural trends. So things
That's yeah,
like so things like wellness and the
right.
influence of technology, those are big ones that have come right now, and they influence people in different ways because of the way they live. So I think it'll be an interesting discussion. I wish we had more time to have questions and answers on it, because I think one of the questions you had was who develops these trends, or who sees these
Right.
trends. Well, we all do. We all do. I mean, there are certain people that we know, like Faith Popcorn, who try to predict the trends. I don't try to predict them. I try to decide for my clients um, which ones we need to pay attention to support their lifestyle, and to make their investment an important one for the long term.
Because I know, yeah, because when it comes to like the trends, such as the metals that are coming back in. So let's just lay it out there: chrome, or
Yeah.
brass, excuse me, brass. So for years it was like de brass, get rid of brass. And so I have a client here. She's selling her property. It's been on the market 9 months. She took it off. I had her paint the inside because the colors were dated. And then, but she has some brass fixtures, not all through the house, but there's intermixed. And she was getting comments, oh, it's dated. Well, so then I go online and I'm looking and I see a company here in Denver that does kitchen remodeling, and they're on the hood of their stove is not just the brushed gold, it is brass trim. I'm like, hmm. And then as you know, go in the stores, you're seeing that more and more. And it's taken a couple of years to get to where I am in my market as far as Denver versus like Southern California. California probably saw it earlier. But are we headed back to brass?
I
Are
think
we
we're having
headed
a,
that way with
yeah,
bringing,
I
oh,
think
connection?
yeah, our connection is kind of breaking up a little bit, but um, I think you've hit on a real point because I did most of my years in my practice were in Northern California, and so the trends, the colors coming in and going out, I consider those more trends than, I mean, more fads than trends, depending on how long they stay in. And when those things
Right,
cycle in and out, there's always a there seems to always be a change of how they are. For example, you pointed out the shiny brass. Well, now it's a soft gold. It's not necessarily the shiny brass. And so how do we satisfy that client that wants to be current and
right.
still um, don't saddle them with something that is trendy. And what I do is I kind of go back to the architecture of the home and kind of take a look at what best fits that architecture, what best supports the design that's best for that architecture. Some of the things that we see now too are very contemporary spaces in old historic
Right,
homes, and some of them are successful and some of them are not. Some of them it's like, yikes, what did you do to this kitchen, right? Or what did you
right.
do to this bathroom? And um and the ones that are successful always take something from that inherent architecture and add that back into a very maybe contemporary outlook for that design. So that real shiny brass could have been a leftover. I know that appliance manufacturers, I work with several of them, and they're all trying to figure out what the next trend is, what the next color is in appliances, and it's a very expensive mistake for them to make. So those little bezels
Right.
or those little trim pieces are an easy one to change, and so that's why many of them will experiment with those before they go into a bigger change of color.
Well, so the site I was looking at, it was on their homepage. I mean, it had the shiny brass around the hood. So I was just, I mean, it supported
Yeah.
this person not having to maybe rip out all the stuff. She didn't have gold everywhere, but by the same token, working with the client, hopefully this week, their house is only 5 years old, and they're
Hmm.
moving, and the feedback they're getting, and it was a new build, is that it's dated. And he's like, how could it be dated? It's only 5 years old. So I'm
Right.
looking inside. It has the warm tone granite. It has the dark cabinets, and so I mean, I know that the quartz, the light cabinets and so forth were in style when that property was built. So the builder opted to go the dark and the gold.
Right.
So and so staging will help make it feel more updated by bringing updated things in there.
Hmm.
But it's just interesting that the expectation of the buyers, the windows seem to be getting shorter and shorter as far as, you know, what constitutes being dated. I would think five years, that house is hardly used, you
Yeah,
know?
and I would say that if they were putting brass in there 5 years ago, it might have been
No,
already a passé um, color to use. 5 years ago, um, dark woods and granite, depending on the granite countertops, were already starting to trend out. So it might be
right.
that they caught like an old style right at the end, and now it's only 5 years, but that style had been available to us maybe 10 years before that. And so
Right.
taking one of those elements and lightening it up or changing it to what's current now, would really help as far as updating the whole thing. Maybe lightening the cabinets, maybe changing out the countertops. I mean, I hate to say that 5 years down
I
the road,
know.
but that's why, that just brings up the reason why I pay attention to what trends have been here for a long time and which ones are starting to fade out. We're starting to look at, for example, white cabinetry. I hate to bring this up because there's a love-hate relationship with white cabinetry, but we're seeing it. It's been here a long time. People seem to feel comfortable with it because they know what to expect. But if it's not matched up with the right things, it will look dated. And so we have to
Right.
be careful. And now white has turned into, bright white has turned into a cream, and it's turned into light gray, and now gray has turned into grayish, and where the sands are shifting. And that's why we as designers need to understand what's current now and how long it's been trending in.
Yeah, and so the house that's 5 years, they didn't have brass in it, but that's dark cabinets. The house with the brass was 25 years old,
Yeah,
30 years. I mean, it was built a while ago. So,
yeah.
and yeah, so the other thing I just was, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking, the trends. So let's say somebody moves from an area where the trends are hitting sooner and they come to an area where they're not hitting there yet. So there you have buyers coming in and they are expecting things like what they see in their market, and they come to an area. So this could also be a challenge for sellers that hasn't quite got there yet. And so these buyers are going to go, oh, your house is dated. And they're like, what are you talking about? I just, updated it 2 years ago. And yet the trends, is that true that they kind of start, I've always heard west and go east. Is that how it, or does it go east, west, and to the center?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because when I moved from Northern California to, there is another Denver, it's in North Carolina, that's where I
Right.
live. So I moved to the Charlotte area from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I had a huge culture shock in my own design business because, yes, the trends start. Well, they start in, I would say a lot of them start on the West Coast, California in particular. There are certain trends that start up in the Pacific Northwest, but that's a real stylistic look. And they also start in the urban New York area. So, New York, Boston, that urban center, and Chicago's a big one. Chicago is a big area that
Yeah.
you can see trends coming out of, even though it's smack dab in the middle of the country. So, yeah, we used to say the coast, and then they come in, but not like the Carolina coast. It's more the industrial Northeast coast and California that starts the trend, and then it kind of migrates around. Usually first to urban areas, and then to more suburban.
And so, because I know it was a few years ago, Kohler came out with a whole line of gold faucets
Mhm.
and so forth, and it didn't go anywhere. It
Yeah,
failed.
yeah.
So then I feel like they held out of that stock. They're like, let's try it again. And they rolled all that stuff out. Now it has caught on. People were receptive to adding in, gold, like the soft, you said soft gold knobs and faucets and so forth and pulls. So you're seeing a lot of the hardware, but it was sort of, interesting that it didn't take the first go round. And I remember Kevin Tane had gone to the Vegas market and he was reporting that gold was everywhere. But this has to have been, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. So, and then here we are with it actually now migrating across the country. So should people just all, should people put gold faucets in, or should they stick with something that's, because you're talking remodeling a bathroom and kitchen, the budget, you want to put ample money towards it. I don't want to be ripping that thing out in 5 years. So is that something that is going to stand the test of time? Or what is a metal that would be something safe, that's on trend, that's going to be classic, that will stand the test of time? What's your
Well,
thought?
it's interesting because Kohler puts out at the builder show, the kitchen and bath show that's combined together. Kohler puts out several um, different finishes. Not that they're out for production, but they talk to the design community and say, which one of these do you think is really gonna happen? And the more authentic the finish is, the longer it lasts. So, for example, chrome. Chrome is, I hate to say it, but you're always going to be safe with Chrome, as long as the other elements
Okay.
support that chrome, right? So if all the other elements support a really soft gold, then that soft gold is going to look great in that kitchen, whether the trend is in or out, right? You, we have to be careful of clients that just want to always put in the very latest and very greatest, because that's more trendy. That's gonna, when people get so heated, enthusiastic about something, it fades faster. So it's the entire element, all the elements together that make that design. If they all support that design, then you're going to have an element that's going to test, that's going to pass the test of time, whether the gold comes in or goes out.
So I have clients that I'm working with. They sold, so I did a consultation for them and brought a few accessories in to help their house sell. They bought a house. It's not a new house, and so they are, putting new flooring, and they want to do their kitchen. So they had the gray cabinets. They had the darker gray and the
Mm-hmm.
up and then lighter gray. They wanted to do mixed, and so one of the questions I asked him is I said, well, how long do you plan on living in this house? What's your plan? And they said, oh, many, many years. They don't plan on selling any, within 5 years or less. So
Mm-hmm.
that's always a factor too, of how long is somebody going to stay in the house as far as the selections they make. If they know we're probably going to be selling within 5 years, they're going to pick things that are more universally appealing versus if they're like, this is my forever house, then they can put, whatever they want in. And then we'll be coming 20 years from now and telling them, you got to rip all that out and update, right?
Yeah, well, that's true. Again, if we go back to the combination being comfortable all together, so for example, if the light gray and the dark gray is supported by um, a countertop that has a gray vein in it, and then you're using the cooler colors, even a stainless or a brushed nickel, which used to be the kind of favorite, and now is being kind of supplanted by the gold, the
Mm-hmm.
the soft gold. Even if you're doing that, but all of those elements support each other, people will walk into that kitchen and go, "I love this. It's
Right.
harmonious, and it works, especially if it works with all the other elements in the architecture of the home. If what you're doing is just putting in that gold faucet because it's the latest, greatest thing, and you think that people are going to really love that in 5 years, that's the mistake.
Right. Very true. Very interesting. So, some of the paint companies are coming out with their colors of the year. So I kind of wanted to cycle back to who determines the trends. And so, is there like a group that studies how we live? And I also want to talk about the aging in place. You have that certification because that's huge because the boomers, that's the largest, well, I guess the millennials took over this as far as the largest population segment, but the boomers are all aging. And this concept of aging in place is really fascinating. So people don't have to go to retirement homes necessarily. But
Mhm.
so is there actually like a think tank on design trends and where are they?
There's certainly a think tank on color. There is a whole
Yeah.
color forecasting group, and they get together and they look at all kinds of things. They look at lifestyle, they look at fashion, clothing fashion, they look at
Hmm.
all kinds of things, and they're the ones that actually choose those colors of the year. And I think I don't know that I'd want to be in that group. That's a heavy burden to kind of carry, because you know uh, it's so emotional for so many people, color. um, as far as the design trends, I think what really happens is we look to other designers and see how they're solving those lifestyle problems for people, and we pick that up. And we in the design community, I always say, to new designers, it's okay to steal, as long as the idea is good and you make it better or the same but not worse. Right? So if you take a great
Right.
idea and you add to it, you take somebody else's idea, which is really great, and you steal it and you add to it and make it better. That's good design. If you steal it and goof it up, that's not so good. So I think what we do is we look to each other, and we see what's out there. That's why we look at everything. That's why, change, travel does it, and discussing with other design groups. That's why I'm interested in talking to the stagers, because I learn from them, they learn from me. I see what they're doing in new homes, and in helping people in what you're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
in new homes, and what you're doing to help people sell their homes, and I take that in and add that to my repertoire. So um, there are predictors, and the predictors are really talking more about lifestyle, like the Faith Popcorns of the world. Um, but even she predicts sometimes, and that it falls by the wayside. So I look at those long-term things. I mean, I look at the things that are really happening. You mentioned the baby boomers, and yes, the millennials took over the group, size-wise, but money-wise, the baby boomers are the ones that are still spending more money in the remodeling, and home improvement areas. Um, and it is interesting that we started out talking about aging in place. And as this developed, a good friend of mine, MaryJo Peterson, is a kitchen and bath designer who's kind of one of the forefounders of aging in place, the whole movement. And it has evolved into just great design. It evolved from helping people that had handicaps, disabilities, to looking at all the different sorts of people. And this has a lot to do with that open concept again, but looking at
Right.
all sorts of different abilities, different heights, different sizes, different reach, not necessarily disabilities, but abilities, and designing for a multitude of abilities, so that now it's just considered good design. If a space allows for anybody with any kind of ability to go into it and function properly in it, that's just great design. That isn't aging.
So,
I mean, it allows you to age in place, but we're almost fighting the concept of that being a specialty design, whereas good design should accommodate for any ability.
I remember when you spoke, and maybe is this the term you use, universal design? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I mean,
And
we're trying to get away from even labeling it, because we
right.
feel in the kitchen and bath industry, we feel that it should be just great design. We're using the term universal design because that includes everybody. But it's even better to think about, just why aren't we just doing this in every space all the time? And why do we have to label it as something different?
Right. Well, and it was funny because after I returned home, I started applying some of the things I learned from you, and I remember sharing to a realtor, and I used that term, and she was like, "Well, what is universal?" Because I think I had it in a PowerPoint thing. She goes, "What is universal design?" And I was like, "Oh," because I was in there, and I'm like, I wasn't really sure how to share what it was. So then I read up on it. So it's design that's for everybody, and I
Yeah,
think that's what the builders hopefully are doing too, and with the designers is that it's not. Um, Properties, I think you're going to, as you're saying, are going to be much more useful for any age group, any situation, that it's not so, and I think that's really wise, because then every property moving forward, anybody coming in there can see that, oh, I can live here. This would work for me.
yeah,
So, and then the aging in place, I saw this really cool thing for, people that do have disabilities, that instead of having, like, I've had houses where they have that thing that goes up the stairwell, you're riding that little chair up the thing,
right.
and, and those are ugly, and they take up a lot of space. And so I saw something where they're installing tracks in the ceiling and throughout the whole house, and they have this like harness system, and I mean, it's amazing. It's almost like railroad track. Like if you want to go to this room, it goes tick, tick, and then it takes you that way, and then if you want to go back around, and then it can have people lift into a bathroom or onto a bed. And so there's,
Yeah,
to care for people, there's not this issue of people hurting their backs trying to lift. And I thought, that's, whoever thought, I mean, I really would have thought, put it in the ceiling. I never would have thought that. And it's not ugly. I mean, it's it's better than that ugly chair thing, and it's more functional because the person can actually go through the whole house on this little track. I just thought it
Yeah.
was really, I was fast. I was watching this whole, I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah,
So,
and like designing a space for an elevator shaft. New homes, maybe they don't put an elevator in, but designing, stacked closets so that at a later date one can be retrofitted. That's just an example of good design, thinking about it from the
right.
very beginning. And so it allows for somebody who might be in a wheelchair to be able to use that wheelchair and go about all over the house. It allows for young kids that you don't want them falling down the stairs. It allows for a lot of people. It allows for your groceries to come up, from a lower uh,
Right.
garage. It's just that's an idea of just great design. The idea that you're talking about really did come from a transfer chair in the bathroom to transfer somebody from, it was embedded in the ceiling to transfer someone from a wheelchair so that they could use a shower, they could use the toilet, they could use all the space in the bathroom. And some designer stole that idea and ran it throughout the whole house, making it even better. It's just an
Yeah,
example of great design.
yeah, it's great. So Kat Trulinus is asking, where do you recommend to get your aging in place certification? How does somebody do that?
I got my CAPS certification through the National Association of Home Builders. There are several classes you take to get your certification, and then there's some advanced classes after you have your certification to keep you current. I think that is also is actually the most comprehensive certification process. There is another one called CLIP, which is Certified Living in Place Professional, which is done put together by a separate association. Well, actually, it's a group of people. It's not quite an association like your association, but that's also a way to get some background information. I do think that the home builders have been doing it longer, and that seems to be a more comprehensive uh, uh, system.
Yeah, because I mean, I think you have to think about, let's say if they're retrofitting an older home, I mean, you have to think about, doorways and access, and we lost her signal. Oh, there you are. Okay, good. You went all colorful there for a second. So I think the building industry.
Oh
So that
boy.
was she was saying is the National Association of Home Builders, and it's CAP, Certified Aging in Place Specialist. Um, that's yeah. So people who are interested, you should look that up. And all of us are going to deal with clients that have those needs, and being able to advise and you know from a professional standpoint, not just guessing. I think that'd be really interesting. So, um,
It's also for a stager, for example, or a designer like myself. It's a great way to network with other associations. There are home builders in the crowd that that share that empathy for aging in place. There are the last class I was in had a social worker who helped people get their homes ready for aging in place. And so she was in there. So, the networking in those groups is awesome, because especially if there's one
right,
locally, provided to you locally, because then you know who the builders are. You can exchange information. They know that you're interested in it. And so it can also, help with business.
right.
Um, but the information is just awesome.
That sounds really great. And so, you were talking about we were talking colors, and so I haven't seen the other colors come out yet, but Sherwin-Williams came out with their color of the year, and so based on what you shared, that they look at fashion and so forth, they had that red clay color,
Hmm.
which I really am hoping that we don't have a lot of fashion. I look horrible in that color, so I'm hoping that it all doesn't go like all we're going to see is all that color. I,
It's interesting.
I don't.
Some of those colors, I have to say, some of those colors that come out, I like to use them as accent colors that in things that perhaps could be changed out when a new strong color comes into play. I like when the color of the year is a more subdued color that is more easy to live with. I would use that color, that clay color, as a complement rather than as a strong standard color in a design that I was doing, because they do change every year. You know, that color of the
Right.
year changes every year. And yeah, I'm not real fond of that color. It is interesting too that sometimes the colors of the year come ahead of what we can find in materials. So, you know, I've got a client right now that we're seeing a lot of navy blue come into play. And I have a client right now that has a real kind of beigey house. She doesn't want to go that very cool blue, but she'd like a warmer blue. And I'm having a heck of a time finding kind of that navy combination in tile that's more subtle, that isn't very cool like the grays, but add some of that warm into it. There's some grays that are doing that I'm kind of going, okay, we can sort of call that blue, you know, because it'll pick up the blue tones. And my guess is I'm going to see more and more of that as the years come. But that's part of being on the front edge of the trend,
Right.
is sometimes you have to really look for that combination that is just coming in. It's kind of interesting.
Well, one of my favorite colors that
We're
came
seeing a
in is
lot of
that
that navy with that
kind of
brushed
indigo.
gold.
Yeah. Well, like indigo, I saw that all over
Yeah,
Vegas market. It's that, you know, that not, it's like a
yeah,
dark, it's kind of in between navy and like maybe a marine blue or something like that. But that indigo, it's striking. And I think that's a really great color, I think, because I think it appeals to just about everybody.
yeah.
Versus, you know, some of the colors of the year they come out with, like, you know, a couple of years ago it was purple. They had fuchsia. They've had emerald green. These really, really bold colors. And thankfully, they didn't. You know, I didn't see a lot of furniture being made in those colors. And certainly, you know,
Right.
we'll have like the main base pieces and artwork. You know, that kind of stuff. I can, as a stager, I can swap out and follow the trends. And it's interesting because this whole idea of paying attention to the trends, you know, when I got started 16 years ago, we didn't do that. It was like, oh, you need to stage a house. What do I have? And I remember some of my first properties, it was like taking stuff out of my own house. Or
Yeah,
going to my mom's house, like, what do you got that I could use? And it was like, I need a rug. I didn't really care what it was. And then I would pull colors from it so it was cohesive. But I wasn't like, okay, that's not an on trend style. And so I'm trying to think back, like, at what point that we really did start to pay attention to the trends. And I want to say it's probably within the last decade or so, but really picked up, I'd say, in the last 5 or 6 years, where as a staging industry, we are paying more attention. And you can see that when you look at the work that's being done, that they are paying attention to who's the buyer, you know, what do they want to see in the properties, the furniture styling, and then creating this cohesive look. So it's not uncommon to see blues and greens, for example, as a palette being threaded throughout the property. So every room kind of has that same color scheme, where in the past it might have been one room could have had that, and then the next room might have, like, you know, reds and yellows because that's what the person had available. So
right.
it's interesting how our industry has grown, matured, and is following the trends more carefully as well.
Yeah,
So
I do agree with you that it's become a more scientific adventure to consider the trends in the last, I would say, yeah, 8, 10, 15 years. It's been way more scientific about it. But I do think that those of us in the industry have really paid attention to them longer than that, but not as diligently, or not as scientifically as we do now. And I think we really do it with, again, with kitchens and baths, because they're so permanent. You know, I mean,
right,
all of the fixtures are built in, and so again, you can't just, you know, if you did make that mistake of having the purple color of the year couch, you could have it upholstered and come back to reality. You
right,
can't very
exactly.
well as easily do that with cabinetry and countertops and those kind of things.
Right. And you know, and as you were talking to, I'm thinking what changed. 15-ish years ago. Well, the internet. So, prior to
Hmm.
us having access to, we only had, I'd go, you'd go to your local stores, you'd see what the furnishings were, maybe magazines were really helpful to help predict some of the trends. But now you have access to information from all over the world and can see what's
Right.
happening and, you know, the different designers, what they're doing. I think that's a huge part of it too. Um, Having access to much more information and styles, and it's really eye-opening for a lot of people to see what other areas are doing and how you can incorporate that into what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think also, people, the average person is traveling more. I think when I started my career, I had wealthy people who were going to Europe. Now everybody travels all over the place and wants their villa to, or their home to look like a villa in Tuscany, and they want their bathrooms to look like some fantastic spa they went to in Switzerland or someplace else. And so, we really have to pay attention to people, to their lifestyles, and
Right.
what they've been exposed to, and how that affects what they want their home to be like.
Well, so I have clients that they've had, it's like a $2 million property up in the mountains. And so they've been on the market 2 years. They've had 12 showings. Now, they didn't build this house, but they moved from, I think, Southern California and bought it. So it's a Tuscany style interior, the gold exterior. It doesn't fit in at all in the area. And so they loved it because it reminded them of California. And so now they're trying to sell it and it isn't happening. So
Yeah.
um, I recommended it because I said, it has the ledge stone and so forth, but I said, get rid of the gold colors, bring in a more contemporary color and start marketing it as Colorado Contemporary or Mountain Colorado Contemporary, something like that, rebrand it because they were trying to sell it as a Tuscan property. And these people built a new property as they're moved to. And I said, what does your new house look like? And it's the contemporary mountain style. And I said, well, so that's what you wanted. That's what other buyers want. And your house isn't showing like that. So
Right.
and because
Right.
yeah, so people
Yeah.
have to be
And
careful
I
about
and I
bringing.
think I think to I think to tie that back into the architecture, there's a lot of small details that you could make that contemporary work with the other elements, the architectural
Right.
elements. The main elements, if they really fight, like the fireplace, you can reface that. But just pulling something in, a color, or a molding detail, or something else that ties that original architecture back into what you're doing on the inside, kind of makes that whole thing more cohesive without it being a Tuscan villa in the Colorado mountains.
Right.
I mean,
I don't know if it's yeah, that's
well, I,
that's
I
whoever
run
built
in,
that
I
house.
run into something real interesting here. I live on a lake north of Charlotte, and the builders here like to build kind of fantasy houses. I mean, like there'll be some Tudor thing with turrets, and we get the Tuscany stuff here too, and it's almost like Fantasia, and we designers call it's the lake is called Lake Norman, and we call it Fake Norman because there doesn't
Oh
seem
my,
to be like a true design aesthetic here, and for me, I love contemporary, but you find very few contemporary homes here, and you would think on a lake that would just be so appropriate, right? But the
right.
people, again, it's North Carolina, and years down the road it'll be here, but you guys in Colorado are leading us in that anyway.
We are. That's good to
Yeah.
know. Well, our time is up,
Yeah.
but believe it or not, it always goes so quickly. And so if you want to learn more about, from Mary Jo, make sure to come to our conference. We're so excited to have you joining us there. So thank you so much for being on. You did great. First Facebook Live,
Yeah,
right?
first time. Kind of wobbly. I need to get one of those tripods like you've got, but hey, we made it.
50, yeah, you can order them online. I mean, $15. But just get ones with the little thing that holds your phone. Make sure that
Yeah.
it has a good, because the one I bought had just like a little foam piece and it, tore off, and then my
Right.
phone kept flying out of the holder. So make sure you get one that has a good
Yeah,
stabilizer.
last
So
night my husband said, "Well, go get one." I said, "It's tomorrow. Give me a break."
I all right. Well, I look forward to seeing you in just a
You
few
too.
weeks. I'm
Thanks so much
excited.
for including me in the conference. I'm
Sure.
excited.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So I can't wait to see you.
You
All right.
too.
Say goodbye to Mary Jo, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Great. So, really looking forward to her session. So I'm kind of slow motion here. She'll be speaking on Saturday. So my mouth feels like it's not in sync with my body. Okay. Well, that's it, guys. So next week we're going to talk about the psychology of staging with your clients, and we touch on this with personalities and so forth. But I want to circle back to some of that, because the psychology of who we're dealing with and situations, I think, is really important to have a strong handle on that as a stager, because we don't always understand people's situations or why they make decisions and so forth. So next week we'll be doing that. And then I believe, I'm going to look at my little calendar here. So today's 26th. So we have the next one will be October 3rd. And then I'll do the 10th. We'll have a segment, and I'll let you guys know who the guest is for that. And then the 17th, we're going to come live from somewhere in North Carolina. And so that'll be very exciting. So it'll be a special segment live, and I hope to have a lot of really great things to be able to share with you from there. And then we have our conference. So the following week, I will be back from conference and recapping a lot of what we learned and what happened there. So thank you all for tuning in. Go ahead and share this segment with your people. I appreciate share to reach as many people as possible. And we'll be back next week with another great segment for you. Have a great rest of your week. Be productive, and go get your business growing. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.